Hi. Today I'm going to go over the top 12 deals on Amazon for family board games. I'm going to briefly review each of the games that's on a big sale for 33 to 63% off, giving you my take on what is the best value for these games. Now, as far as the review is concerned, these, of course, are my interpretation, my opinion of these games. But the information on what's on sale is always available on theperfectboardgame.com. So I've got that site open right now. When you first land on the page, it's going to be open to general best deals. And what I'm going to do is focus on just the family category. Now, if this is a site that you found useful for finding deals, do me a favor and buy through the site using the affiliate links. You can click on a game, and then when the game page loads, if you click on the price, that'll take you straight to Amazon. It's the same cost, but what that does is it gives a portion of that purchase back to me, which helps support the site and helps support this channel. So if you are going to be buying games anyway, it doesn't cost anything to support this site by doing it through the site. Anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at these games. We'll start with the biggest deal, Adventureland, and we'll go through all 12. So most of the time I'll do it very briefly, although I've got to say I'm going to focus on Adventureland a little bit because this is an excellent deal. I am taking advantage of this deal, Adventureland. This is actually a game that's been around since 2015, and I'll be honest, I have judged it by its cover. The name itself is just so bland. It'd be so easy to think of a better name than this. They could have called it, we literally couldn't think of any better name. And that would be a better name than Adventureland. The cover of this game just tells me that this is going to be one of these like dice rolling, like I'm on an adventure. Ooh, what's going to happen next? I don't know. Flip the card and let's find out. I mean, like, I've got enough games like that in my collection. And you get kind of tired of like generic family RPGs. But because it was on this list, I decided to take a closer look at it and go through the rules. And when I finally learned about what this game is about, I was like, oh yeah, for $14, I'm buying it. By the way, I will say, if you click on this one, it shows the price $16. So I think the site queries every single day for the best deals, but either this is regional or this just hasn't been updated since the price changed. But for $16, I bought it. Here's what I like about it. First of all, yeah, we can kind of look at the board. This game plays on a grid, and it is extremely mechanically driven. A lot of games that are adventure-typed games are luck-driven. You're either revealing cards or you're rolling dice to find out what the outcome of battles are or what events unfold before you. In this game, you are actually still using dice and cards, but you're using the cards to make items appear on a square grid map, and on your turn, you're moving your adventurers who start in the top left corner like this, and they can move as far as they want along the map, but they start in the top left corner and they can only move right and down. So the decision that you're always weighing is, do I want to move far and go get this object that's appeared on the map, or do I want to move a little bit slower and draw this out so that maybe I can get some opportunities that may appear further back in the map, since you can never turn around and go back. The game comes with different kinds of quests and different obstacles that will appear on the map, things you need to work around, water sprites, there are cloud monsters, and there is some dice rolling to resolve battles, but you can pick up items to augment the battles. I really like how mechanically driven it is. This grid moving mechanism just makes the game so much more interesting. So I decided to take a look at that, and I think it's for the price, I think it's an excellent deal. But that one is my probably the highest value on here, although there are some other excellent games on here. In fact, the next one, Twin Palms. So Twin Palms is a game that I reviewed not too long ago. This is a trick-taking game, and it is a trick-taking game where you are able to play two cards at a time for a trick. So the strength of the card that you play depends on how you pair cards together. Really, what that means is you are constructing your own hand strength. You can deliberately put cards together to make your hand weak if you want to lose a trick, or you can try to put cards together in such a way to make it strong and try to win as many tricks as possible. You're bidding on the number of tricks you can take. I loved how unique this is, and I've played a lot of trick-taking games. They're kind of a dime a dozen at this point. Only the best few really rise to the top, and I think Twin Palms really has that potential. So the next game, Shut the Box. Shut the Box is 50% off, and this is a dice rolling game. It feels a lot like Yahtzee. What you're trying to do is you're rolling dice as many times as you can, trying to eliminate numbers as these dice come up, and once you've rolled the dice and you get something that you've already had before, you have to pass the dice to somebody else. There are a lot of dice games that have this kind of press your luck mechanic. It's very, very simple. It is completely abstract. I usually don't buy games that are abstract like that, like just a themeless dice rolling game, but it is a really nice high quality like component, this like flipping down these tiles as you take your turns. And that's 50% off. Now, before I go to the next game, which is 42% off, I did want to jump back over to best deals, just overall best deals, because there is a game that isn't classified as a family game, but I think it could be. That's Betrayal at House on a Hill, which is 51% off. This is at $18 right now. That's such a good price for Betrayal. I will say, Betrayal is not a game that I personally like all that much. This is more of a luck-driven game, actually. But it is a theme-driven game. It's a trader game. Basically, it starts as cooperative. You are exploring a haunted house, and then one player turns against everybody else, and you have to. It's everybody against one. If that's a dynamic that would be interesting to your family, a trader game, Betrayal would be an awesome deal for $18. I don't own it personally. I'm not so into it, but a lot of people really like it a lot, so I wanted to share that one. Let's go back over here. So, Pandemic. Fall of Rome. If you've never tried variations on Pandemic, I can say that they all seem to. I haven't played every single one, so I have to say they all seem to follow the same mechanic, which is basically you have a few actions and you're using cards to figure out what it is you're up against. But in this one, you're moving soldiers around on a map. It has a really nice thematic feel to it. I think it's a great adaptation, but it is just a variation on Pandemic's base game. I wouldn't buy it for $29, but if you're a big fan of Pandemic, I think you would really like this. Oh, it's almost like it isn't an expansion, but it has that feel to it where it's a standalone game and just really offers an interesting new perspective on Pandemic. Now, Wayfinders is a game that I'm going to talk about this one when I get to Juicy Fruits. I'm going to put those together. So I'm going to skip Wayfinders for now. Fertility, 40% off. This is $30. I own Fertility. I actually really enjoy it a lot. This is a game. Let's see if I can just pull it up and look at a picture. What you're doing on your turn is you're placing dominoes onto a square grid, and the dominoes are going to give you resources for how many adjacent dominoes they're touching that match the resource type. So here, you got different resources. You get these resources, and then in the game, you have to spend them immediately. You cannot save them for future turns. So the kinds of things that you can buy are tiles that will help give you more points when you trade in those resources. So for example, this tile here, it costs 0 resources, but once you get it, you can put grapes on there to turn them into wheat, which is points at the end of the game, or statues. And then some other things are just worth playing victory points. But it's a pretty, like, thematically dry game, but I really like this game's flow. I like how quick this game is. It has a really just a nice, easygoing flow to the game. Although, you know, maybe I'll say a little bit more about this one when I talk about Wayfinders also. I think it's great. $30 to buy. I think it might be worth taking a closer look at yourself to see if this is really something that you'd want. What's next? What's next is also 40% off right now. So What's Next is a cooperative skill-based game. So I have it on the shelf. Well, oh, and by the way, it's a cooperative skill-based game with fantastic components. I love what's inside this box. Just for the quality of this board game, this is worth it to get it on sale for 40% off. Anyway, let me talk a little bit more about what it's about. Choose your own adventures, right? Like, if you make this decision, go to page 12. If you make that decision, go to page 15. So this is a choose your own adventure type game where you have cards. You read the first card, it gives you a scenario, and it says if you want to make this choice, flip to this card, another choice, go to another card. So you're going from card to card, and when you encounter a challenge, unlike the books that are choose your own adventures where it's like you made a bad decision, you die, bah, bah, bah. Every single situation in here that like can challenge you or hurt you is a physical dexterity challenge. So maybe it says like, okay, here's what you have to do, and it has a story about what you have to do, and then it has a analogy to some physical challenge. So it's like, flick this disc, and if the disc lands in this zone, then you're successful. If it lands in any other zone, then you're unsuccessful. Or another one might be, use these tiles to make this shape. It's kind of like tangrams or something, so you're making a shape, and you have 30 seconds to do so. If you're successful, then that signifies such and such, and go to this card. If you're unsuccessful, it signifies that you failed, and go to this card. Now, when you fail, you don't have like hit points, you have another challenge. And the other challenge is stacking these blocks on top of each other. And of course, kind of like a Jenga tower or something. But once the tower falls over, it's game over. So you have to take your skill. You can stack the tower as high as you want, but it gets more and more difficult. I will say, don't play this game if you have a table that shakes, because how long you can play very much depends on how well you can stack this tower without it falling over. But I really like it. As far as I can tell, we've played... Pause. The game has several adventures in it. There are 3 adventures that come in the box. So what I mean by adventure is it's a box of cards with very different challenges and a different story. So we've played 2. And from the 2 challenges we've played so far, it seems like every path leads to victory, but some paths are more difficult than others. And of course, the more you fail at the challenges, the harder it gets to build your tower. Anyway, this whole concept, a cooperative game and a choose your own adventure game that is based on skill and not luck. There's no, you could say there's some luck in the game because the choices depend on what challenge it is, and some challenges are easier than others, but there's no luck otherwise. This is a great story-driven game that doesn't depend on luck. And I see that so rarely. So when I found out about this game, I think I may have bought it on sale in the first place. But I have really enjoyed it. The only caveat here is that because it's choose your own adventure, you could argue that it doesn't have the same replayability. Once you know the story, you've learned the choices, there's that, but you can replay the story as many different ways because there's a lot. Like, one story going through the cards, I probably played about 1/5 of all the cards that are available. So it's very clear that there are so many other paths. All right. Wingspan for 40% off. If you've watched my channel at all, you've seen how critical of Wingspan I am. I just did a video, 5 games that are better than Wingspan. I would buy Wingspan for $39. Like, you can say what you want about Wingspan, about maybe criticizing it, but for $39, that is a fantastic deal. I don't even know if it's worth talking about. This game is already so popular. If you've never played it before, if you're even thinking of trying it, this is the right price to pay. And I'm saying this as somebody who is critical of Wingspan. It's like a tableau building game. The more cards that you get, you strengthen your hand, but all of the cards are like these beautiful bird cards. It's just a really, really kind of an isolated game. That's one of the big criticisms of it. But man, what a great deal. 40% off. All right, I do have a question in here about Fertility. It says, I was just looking into Fertility. How do you think it holds up as far as getting a lot of plays out of it? Or does it feel like much of the same challenge every game? I think that's a great question. Fertility does not have... I'll pull up the game. It does not have a lot of what people would call replay value in the sense of having variation in the setup. There are those games that you play, you set it up, and you're like, oh, whoa, look at how it's set up. This game's going to be so different than our last game. That'll never happen with Fertility. Every game feels like the previous game. But what I like about it is I find the domino placing mechanic very satisfying. And I don't like a lot of abstract games, so I don't have actual dominoes. I don't own dominoes, which is kind of weird for a person who has like over 150 board games. But I don't have dominoes, but I would play Fertility over dominoes any day. I really like, it's just a really satisfying flow. Yeah, it's like playing in any domino game, but with resources that you can use to buy stuff. So good flow, but not the kind of game where there's variation in how the game is played. Thank you for the question. Okay, so we talked about Wingspan, awesome deal. Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle cooperative deck building game. Okay, I'm going to start by saying this. If you like Harry Potter world, then you should buy this game. Period. That's all. Okay, that's a positive thing. I've said a good thing about Harry Potter. Now here's my take on Harry Potter. I don't really like any intellectual property games. Any. I so often IP games are just pasted themes onto already popular board games. And I don't like that, like, IP games, you play the game for the theme, not for the game, and I'm in it for the game. So whenever I see IP games, I sort of blow them off. By the way, I don't know if you can hear that cuckoo clock in the background. What is it? 10 a.m. If that comes through, it's going to go for a bit. Anyway, so I don't really get excited about IP games, but if I did, I would be excited about this game. It exhibits the same characteristic that I complain about, which is it is an IP game pasted on a popular game. If you imagine Dominion's a really popular game. Deck builder. So you've got a deck of cards, you're turning over 5 cards, you're using the abilities on the cards to either buy more cards or to essentially get some kind of victory points or to get cards that will give you actions to get more victory points. That's Dominion. Harry Potter, just imagine that instead of victory points, you're using the cards that would give you, I think it's influence in this game. You use the influence to attack bad guys and defend spaces. So mechanically, the game is not inspired. But what's really cool is that it comes with 7 adventures, one for every year in the Hogwarts story. And it's loaded with surprises. Like, you're going to have different villains, you're going to have different locations. They even have, like, the fourth challenge in the game is like the longest challenge, just like the book is the longest book. I think that really intrigues me. I think to get into the story, like if your family is into Harry Potter, playing a cooperative game where all of the players are familiar with the characters, are familiar with the spells. A lot of the cards, the card, let's see if I can click on it and show you one of the cards. Okay, like these ones right here. I can't read it; it's too small to read. But like, it's the gesture that you make with the wand. So you've got, Wingardium Leviosa. So it's showing you like the shape that the wand makes in the sky when you make it. So I kind of don't like that artwork there. It's all just red with like abstract shapes. But then you've got characters like, here's Hedwig over here, and I think he heals Harry, and you can play as Harry or Ron or Hermione or somebody else. It's just a really cool thematic game. If your family's into Hogwarts, absolutely buy this game. I would not buy this game because I don't like Harry Potter stuff or IP games, but for $31, absolutely. Okay, Juicy Fruits. I said I was going to talk about Wayfinders and Juicy Fruits at the same time. Wayfinders and Juicy Fruits are both games that I've looked at before for some of my other family board game lists, or people have like said like, hey, this is a cool game, you should take a look at it. So I look at these games and basically they fall flat with me because they are very colorful. They look very attractive. This is the kind of game where if I was going to play this game with you, I'd be like, hey, do you want to play Juicy Fruits? And I would show you the box and you'd be like, yeah, that looks so fun. Let's set it. And I'd set it up and you'd be like, oh, the pieces. Let me show you pieces. You'd be like, oh, the pieces are so cute. Oh, it's so colorful. It's so pretty. Oh, this is, how do you play? How do you play? And same thing with Wayfinders. Like, I'd set it up and you'd be like, oh my gosh, look at these planes, look at this cool stuff, this is going to be such a great game. And I would tell you how to play, and as I would be teaching the rules, you would just be losing interest more and more. Because the game has nothing to do with the theme. It's just colorful pieces doing pretty abstract things with no mechanic that really pops out at you. Now, by the way, I am somebody who has played hundreds of games, hundreds upon hundreds of games. I have developed a sense of knowing what kind of game I'm not going to want to play more than like, I don't know, 4 times. And if I didn't have the exposure that I had to so many games, I would probably buy this one and be like, oh yeah, Juicy Fruits, it's so cool, I really like it. But I'm doing this with the perspective of somebody who's played so many, many, many games. And that makes me much more critical. I don't think this is like an awful game. It just doesn't stand out for me. So I'm going to briefly describe the mechanics. They're both played on a square grid. So in Juicy Fruits, you are getting resources by moving your tiles along the grid. So for example, you can kind of see this lime here. If you move this lime downward, you can move it down 1, 2, 3 spaces. And if you move it 3 spaces, you can get 3 limes just by sliding boxes around. So, this mangosteen, you could slide it 3 spaces and get 3 mangosteens if you want mangosteens. If you want a banana, though, you can only slide the banana up or down. You only get 1 banana. Like, what? Why does sliding boxes around have anything to do with getting resources? It doesn't impress me at all. Now, what you're doing with those resources is you're either loading these ships, and when the ships are loaded, they leave, which gives you more space on the island, or you're buying these shops. I don't know if there's a picture of the shops. Or you're buying shops, which are on the grid over here. And the shops fill up space on your island, but they give you victory points. So it just has nothing to do with trading fruit. It might be... I haven't played it because I read it and I was like, what a boring game. Wayfinders, something a little similar. You want to, this time though, you want to move on a grid. So you want to move to these different islands and put your hanger on the islands to get victory points. The way that you move is by having resources. So over here, there's all of these resources on a playing mat. You randomly populate this with things from a bag, and it's worker placement. So you put a worker there, you get to have a resource from that line, and then you can use your resources to move your planes around and claim spaces. But it doesn't have anything to do with airplanes, and it just seems like the rule explanation is so convoluted. And that's why I said I might also mention Fertility here, because I don't necessarily know for sure that Fertility has anything over Wayfinders and Juicy Fruits. Fertility is very much the same thing. And if I'm going to use that standard of like, hey, the theme is dumb and it's just like doesn't stand out, then I might as well say the same thing about Fertility. I guess the difference is the domino mechanic is something I don't have a lot of. I don't have a lot of domino placing games, so this is very interesting to me. Whereas a game where you're placing tiles in a square grid is so common, and a game where you're placing workers is so common. I have so many grid placing games, worker placement games. I would rather play Calico, really, because Calico makes a lot more sense to me. And some other tile grid that has a dumb theme just isn't worth my money. So I don't vote for Juicy Fruits. But the next one is Planet. So, Planet, maybe I should, here. I got two monitors. I'm going to look over here so you can see me looking more towards the camera. Planet is brilliant. This is one of the my first reviews that I ever did for this channel. It was one of the games from my top 10 family games. The first time I did a top 10 family game. I have loved this game forever. Oh, looks like, okay. I was just going to say, it looks like the prices come up a little bit because over here I've got that link. So this says 31 and this says 34. So 28% off. I think these deals must vary regionally. Anyway, let's talk about Planet. Oh look, it's my review on the site. Okay, so Planet, you've got oh man, I can't remember what it's called. Let's see. It's a platonic solid. Okay, so not icosahedron, decahedron, I think. Anyway, I don't want to nerd out about the right mathematical name for the shape that you have. It's a globe, okay? It represents a globe. You've got pentagonal tiles that you cover your globe to make terrain types. And then at the end of every round, after everybody has drafted their magnetic tile, which they've put on their globe, so they're very gradually completing in this globe. At the beginning, you end up with it mostly empty, and then you keep adding more and more tiles as you play. At the end of every round, a card comes out. So you can kind of see in here this turtle. This turtle is looking for a water tiles. The most water tiles that is next to has to be adjacent to sand. So if you've got water that's adjacent to sand, then you are a candidate for this turtle, and the person who wins it is going to be the one who has the most water. And so you're kind of competing for this animal. Like the next one here is the mountain goat. It wants mountain, but not any mountain that's next to snow. So every round you can kind of see in advance what the animals are going to be when they come out. And so you're trying to build your planet in order to have an ecosystem that supports these animals, because the person who has the most animals at the end of the game is going to win. And then there are some objective cards which you can optionally play with that will also give you victory points if you have a certain number of a specific terrain type. It is an excellent game. It plays so well with kids of any age. I was playing this with my daughter when she was 3 years old, and it was still no problem. Hey, there she is actually in this little picture. So I love this game. And it's $31, which is awesome. You should definitely buy this game. And I'm going to say it again. If you're joining me right now, when you buy these games, if you find the site useful, please do use the affiliate links. They really help me support running this website. Okay. Last game, it's another game that I own. It's Draftosaurus. Now, I have reviewed Draftosaurus before. I don't have my video on this site, but I've reviewed Draftosaurus before. I can't remember if I put it on my top 10 or if I put it on a comparison list. Basically, if you've played games like Seven Wonders or Sushi Go, these are all drafting card games where you have a hand of cards. These other games. You have a hand of cards. You're picking one, and then you're passing all the cards to the player on your left. What I like about Draftosaurus so very, very much is that instead of cards, you have dinosaurs, wooden dinosaurs. And you're cupping in your hand, and you're picking different dinosaur out, and you're putting it inside your dinosaur park, which you see here. Now, if you satisfy different objectives, like this one wants a pair of dinosaurs, and this one wants as many dinosaurs as you can get, and this one wants dinosaurs that are all different, right? So you're trying to draft them to satisfy a certain number of points, or sorry, some certain objectives on your player mat, and then you pass the dinosaurs. It is a drafting game with a much more tangible object. When I play games, it is simply more satisfying to have pieces that are enjoyable to hold and manipulate. I think a lot about Azul. Azul would not be the game it is today if the pieces were made out of cardboard. It just wouldn't. The thing that makes Azul great are these really satisfying pieces. Similarly, in Draftosaurus, what makes this game so cool is that you're using actual dinosaurs, and it's satisfying. So I really like this game. I bought it as soon as I found out about it. I probably paid full price. It is now 33% off, which is excellent. I don't know if it'll go down anymore. I kind of want it, because it's kind of a simple game. I would want to pay less than $15 for it if I was buying it on sale, but maybe it won't. $16's not a bad price. Certainly better than full price. So those are the top 12 deals. You can actually click this and you can just keep going, right? Like there's more deals over here, more deals. You can go back to the previous page. So lots of family games, perfectboardgame.com. Thanks again for watching this video, and thank you for using those affiliate links. I really do appreciate it. Let me see really quickly. I'm just looking for any other questions before I sign off. Ohanami is definitely worth checking out. I actually don't know Ohanami for drafting games. Anyway,